I have ongoing trauma, and I think it's not serving me in this new business.
This is the kind of stuff that I think is game-changing for people.
We're getting real deep here.
What will you do differently going forward based on the learnings that you had from last time?
Welcome back to the Creator Wizard Podcast. I've got my good buddy and coach, Darrell, here. Thanks for joining us, man.
Glad to be here.
We're in person at Kit Studios in Boise, Idaho. And been doing some great recordings here, and we just decided, let's sit down, let's do a pod. We've been working together for how long?
6 months.
Probably about 6 months. And Darrell, give us the quick elevator pitch of like your experience at. You've done a lot over your career.
Yeah.
But give us the plug.
So I've been in the creator universe for 20 years as of this year.
Wow.
So I started in 2004. Back then, everybody was a blogger, and so I've been in this space for a long time. I've worked with all kinds of high-level creators, helping them develop online courses, grow their email list, etc. I was also the head of growth at ConvertKit. In the early days, I was employee number 7, helped them out in 2015 and 2016 and 2017. Since then, I've built a private equity firm that invests in creator businesses, as well as having an advisory firm, which is the way that we work together. So. I work generally with high-level creators that want to grow their revenue to over $1 million.
Wow. Well, that sounds like something I want to do. Yeah, so the things that we've been doing together, so the thing that I really appreciate about you and working with you is that you have both the strategy, vision, high-level 30,000 square foot stuff, but also tactical knowledge and experience.
I've been an operator in businesses.
Right. So it's like, okay, here's what we need to do. Oh, you're going to do a Black Friday promo. Here's the here's what you should do. Here's the messaging. Here's what you should talk about. So you have both, and I think that that's pretty unique. Okay, one of the things I was hoping we could talk about today is maybe a little bit of a different topic, which is that I have ongoing trauma from my last business failing. I've talked about this before on the podcast a few times.
Yeah.
And I think it's not serving me in this new business.
Say more.
So the most obvious one is I waited too long to hire my first employee, I think. The quick story is that I had to lay off all my employees right when COVID hit, like a lot of businesses did. But I made a series of bad investment decisions for the business and hiring people I shouldn't have and all that. And it was like absolutely the most traumatic thing I ever went through. Not just losing my own personal identity, because it was so wrapped up in like being the owner of this agency and it doing well and all that, and hoping that was going to be a kind of the what propelled me and my wife into kind of the next chapter of our lives and everything, and for that not to happen, and for me to have to lay off like some of my best friends, who I was providing for their livelihood. God, that was awful. And so when I was growing, from the beginning when I started growing this business. I think I, for too long, kept looking at it as like a skunkworks project. It was like, this is not a business. I'm just like having fun, like making YouTube videos, and I guess now people are paying me a little bit, coaching, and I'm going to do a cohort-based course. But I'm still kind of like, it's not the main hustle, right? Yeah. And so I have struggled. And so ultimately, it got too much where I was just feeling so stressed out. I got to hire a VA, which was like the first step. And then, started progressively so I have a couple employees now. But I still feel like this trauma that I have of like needing to lay people off or having to lay people off is preventing me from like maybe taking bigger swings with scaling, with growing the team.
This is normal, first of all. And I have, in the 6 months of working with you, I have heard you talk about this no less than probably 10 times, brought up about this fear of having to lay people off again and not wanting to get into it. So first of all, let's normalize the fact that was a traumatic experience and that having some sort of failure is something that is really hard to deal with, and it is really hard to lay off your friends. It is really hard to close a business down. Those are all really hard things. So let's not skip over that piece of it, first of all. That can exist, while at the same time, it can be a limiting belief. It can be like limiting beliefs. There can be blocks mentally here. So we don't need to change that. We don't need to force any of that. So that's okay. It can be hard. My question for you, and I'm gonna play the role of coach in this conversation, is In what ways are you confident that that story or that trauma is not serving you well?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up my wife as well, because a big part of my shame with the failure was that I let her down.
Did she tell you that?
No, and that this is also a problem.
Yeah.
It was a tough thing for sure, because she also was like banking on the fact that this was going to be, but she's like the most understanding and compassionate person when it comes to this. And so I never heard those words from her mouth. And so I just assumed that she was disappointed in me, because frankly, I was like burning the candle at both ends, trying to make the agency work, traveling, conferences, like staying up super late, like all the time for years, and for that, I just assumed like, well, she had to give up so much watching the kids and like, taking care of them, all that while I was gone. For a long time, I just kind of assumed. And even though she's told me so many times, I still think it. I still think that like, if this next thing doesn't work, if this current business doesn't work, that's it. Like, she's not gonna love me. She's not gonna like want to be with me. I'm not gonna be the provider that I want to be for my family. Again, it's like all in my head. I don't know why. I think a part of it is like, we're getting real deep here. It was hard for me when we first got together. We thought that our relationship was going to be more traditional. I was going to be the breadwinner, more of a gender role, more traditional gender role thing. She was a preschool teacher. I was in medical devices. And so that was what we thought our life was going to be like. And so for her to grow this like really surprising business with YouTube and all that, it flipped the gender roles. And so it was really hard for me to accept that for a long time. Of course, we worked together, and I helped in the background and all that too, but it was really her. She was like the talent. She was the person the brand wanted to work with and all that. And so I feel a tremendous amount of pride in the fact that it's flipped back, that I'm now the breadwinner again, like I always wanted to be. And I'm not judging it. Anyone can have their own like dynamic for their relationship, but it's like important to me and her.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm scared of, I guess.
Scared of losing that again.
Yeah, I guess I've never articulated that. Like I'm scared of like, now that I've achieved the thing that I've wanted for 15 years, basically, if I make the wrong move, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
So
I think one thing I want to reflect back to is, one thing that is for sure not serving you is assuming what she thinks about you. That's an amount of energy that is in my opinion, not a good use of your energy, right? Especially in that kind of intimate relationship, and especially if she's told you that before. There needs to be kind of a duality of conversation here, right? So there's obviously a very loud conversation. She's disappointed in me. I've let her down. That's happening, right? So we are very clear about that conversation happening. There has to be another conversation that's happening at the same point that is, okay, but what has she actually said? Have I actually asked her? What does she actually believe? And I think if you can hold those two things at the same time, there's usually a point of wisdom between those 2 points that is true. So for example, in this, it sounds like you guys have had this conversation, and she has told you.
Many times.
What are the things that she's said to you?
I mean, it's like, I'm not disappointed in you. Like, yes, it sucked, of course. But like, she's basically like my ride or die.
Yeah.
And I know that. But at the same time, it's like I have the fear of regressing. I have the fear of going back to that really low, shameful place of where I was when everything failed. And so...
What makes that shameful? It's an interesting word.
Remember the first time someone asked where they could buy your merch? That moment when you realized your audience wanted more than just content. They wanted to support you, to own a piece of what you create. But here's what no one tells you about selling online. Your store's URL is like the thumbnail to your business. And just like you wouldn't post a video with a blurry thumbnail, why would you send your loyal fans to something like www.creator-name-123.shopify.com? That's where .store comes in, the domain extension built for creators who are serious about their brand. Think about it. MrBeast uses MrBeast.store. iShowSpeed uses a bold Speed.store. Doesn't that sound cool? Even Rihanna gets it with Rihanna.store. And time for a shameless plug, CreatorWizard.store. When you're building your brand, every detail matters. While .com could be anything, a blog, a portfolio, whatever, .store tells your audience exactly what they're getting. And this isn't just about looking professional. Creators using .store domains are seeing real results. 2 times more visibility and 87% more clicks clicks compared to other domains. That's because when your fans search for your merch, having .store in your URL actually helps you rank better in search results. Don't wait until someone else grabs your .store domain. Join over 1.5 million online businesses and creators who have already claimed theirs. Your brand deserves a URL that's as memorable as your content. Brand better, sell more, and join the coolest creators on a .store domain. Get yours at go.store/wizard1 or click the link below. Real quickly, remember your first podcast episode, your first YouTube video, or your first blog post? Think back to how it felt to hit publish on that early piece of content. Now, look at how far you've come. Your content has transformed, and so have you. But has your email marketing platform kept up? Do you even have one? Enter this episode's sponsor, Kit, which is the email marketing service designed specifically for creators like you and for me because I use it and I love it. Whether you're crafting newsletters, managing subscriptions, or sending updates, Kit grows with you. With easy integration for your blogs, podcasts, YouTube channels, and e-commerce stores, Kit ensures your email marketing works as hard as you do. You probably know that when you press publish on platforms like YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, you're kind of at the mercy of the algorithm for your content's reach, right? And I'm gonna prove it to you. I'm gonna show you the real reach of one of my recent Instagram posts. So I have about 11,600 followers roughly. And my last reel, let me show you this. My last reel got 386 views, reach of 322. So quick math here, 2%. You know what my average open rate is on my emails that I send out through Kit? Around 40 to 45%. So which one do you want to have? 2%, 45%. 2%, 45%. I'll let you be the judge. So take control with Kit. Here you can own your audience relationships directly. No middlemen, no unpredictable algorithm changes, just a direct line to your followers. Kit isn't just another tool. It is a partner in your creative journey. So if you want to create with freedom, automate with ease, and engage your audience like never before, build a platform you own. Start with Kit today at kit.com. That's KIT.com, or you can click the link down below. All right, let's get back to it.
I think, I don't know, maybe I think a lot of creators can identify with this, is that it's kind of a weird thing to be a creator. A lot of people that I've talked with have felt alienated from their friends and family because this weird thing with publishing content on the internet or whatever is a novelty. It's like not a normal job or not a normal life. And so I built up, I think, this like thick skin over the years from being poked by a stick from everyone in my life, family, friends, like, oh, how's that YouTube thing going? You know, just like a condescending undertone. And so for a long time, I felt defensive about this thing that we did. Even though we were successful, it was like I felt like I had to prove people wrong in my life that like, no, this is a thing. There was a big thing when I quit
It's a legitimate job.
Yeah. Like when I quit my job, I remember I had in medical devices, 6 figures. My entire family thought I was absolutely insane. Health benefits, you have a new child, you're gonna go to be a YouTuber? Like what if it doesn't work out? What if it, blah, you know, all these different things. Which is a whole other conversation. But like I built up this like armor of needing to maybe project a level of success. So I couldn't let the naysayers win, kind of maybe. Yeah. And so the shame, I think, comes from not wanting to regress to it and them finally feeling validated. Oh, see.
Told you so.
See, told you so. Like this wasn't going to work out, you know.
What's interesting for me and what comes up for me as I'm hearing you, and I want to reflect this back, is there's a lot of conversations you're having in your head with people that haven't actually happened. And I think it's a very normal thing. So there's no shame in that being the case. But it's really important to have, like, again, the duality of conversation is if you're going to have that conversation, there needs to be a version of Justin that can look at that and observe that and say, hey, I'm doing this thing again where I'm having conversations with somebody that haven't actually happened yet. Again, very normal. I do it all the time too. I have a business partner who I really, really respect, and he's kind of a strong, like, masculine guy. Every time he says to me, hey, can we talk for 5 minutes? I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble again.
He's going to resign or something.
I'm in trouble. I'm going to be in trouble again. Right. I'm like, is that my dad? Is that my dad's voice? Whatever. But there needs to be another part of you. Like, there needs to be another, like a handhold that you have to say, hey, this is a pattern that I have where I make up conversations in my head, and those conversations are generally worst case scenario, right? Hey, everybody who thinks that I was crazy for quitting my job is going to think I'm a complete failure because this thing failed. Or, hey, my wife is disappointed in me, even when she's something that she's not. So again, the duality of conversation here. We have to be able to say, hey, Let's not ignore that voice that is saying like anxiety, stress, shame, those things are happening. I think a lot of times people try to like repress that down, pretend like it's not there. It's obviously there, and it's yelling really loudly. But can we just observe that for a minute? And what's the other conversation? The other conversation with your wife specifically is she's not disappointed in you. But what it's speaking to is I care really deeply that I don't disappoint her in a way that would threaten our relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, this dynamic is really important, and I want to make sure that I can contribute in a way that is the type of partner that I want to be. So what actually is happening on the other side is like a deep desire to please her and to connect with her and to be with her. So there's a third point of wisdom in all of this, which is like, hey, this thing happened, and I'm probably making up this conversation in my head because this is how I feel about myself. And it's easier for me to say she must feel that same way too, even though she has told you that she doesn't. But the reason that you're afraid of that is because I care for her so deeply. So there's a third point of wisdom in all of this, where you can say, hey, let's, again, not ignore this. Let's spend a little bit of time. I call this the still small voice. It's just a little quieter, right? There's a loud voice over here that's like, you're going to fail again. You're going to fail again. Like, your wife's disappointed in you. All your family thinks you're crazy for quitting the job. It's a really loud one. We need to be able to create a little bit of space for this other quieter voice. And again, we're not schizophrenic. But this is just the duality of our minds a little bit, right? And so there's that too. And we've got to then be able to hold, our mutual friend Tim McGraw talks about being able to hold two opposing truths at the same time is like a sign of mental health. And so you've got to be able to hold these two truths at the same time. I'm afraid that she's going to be disappointed in me. I have a tendency to believe the worst about myself, and then I'm afraid that everybody else feels the same way. Also, I care very, very deeply about these relationships, and I want them to be proud of me, right? So holding those two together, there's a third point of wisdom that I want to pull the thread on a little bit and see if we can get to, right? So I care very, very deeply about my wife. I want her to be proud of me, and I want to be the kind of partner that plays my part in the relationship that we've kind of set together.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that I'm disappointing her, and I have a tendency to believe that. There's a third point here, right? Which I think gets back to the business a little bit. So what's coming up for you as I'm kind of laying this out?
Jeez.
Is this making sense?
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I think.
And just notice, first of all, let's just notice your shoulders just dropped.
Yeah. Okay.
The energy just shifted.
Okay.
This is a good thing, right?
This is a good thing.
You're settling in.
Okay, let's get even deeper. I'm gonna try not to cry. I feel like I can never make up to her the fact that she had to spend the early part of our kids' lives being both a mom and a hustler, where she, because that was the way in which our family was making money, she couldn't just focus on being a mom. And so today's the filming day. We got this sponsorship. And so like, I'm the one out, and I love spending time with my kids. I spend a lot of time with them, but like, that's time she can never get back. And that's hard. That's hard to feel. Maybe that's where a lot of this is coming from, is like, I mean, there's, that's a discrete time in life that you're never going to get back.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I feel so strongly of like, almost this like, I got to make it up to you and like make sure your life is like kick ass from now until forever, because I feel so guilty about that.
Have you asked her how she feels about that?
That's definitely been something we've talked about.
Yeah.
That was not a regret, but like, that was just the way our life was. Like, wasn't like something she's actively angry about at all, but it's just like, it's something I feel, because going back to the traditional gender roles, that's what I wanted. I wanted her to be able to do that. But it was like, I don't know, it was just like this, you ever feel like it's almost like a runaway freight train, like there's this inertia in your life, you're doing things a certain way, your life is a certain way, your business is a certain way, and it would take so much force to like change you off the path unless you did something drastic. And that's how it felt for a long time. Like, this is just this is just our life. Like, we can't do anything about it. Like, and like, we're so grateful. Like, we get to stay home. There's all these other amazing things about it. We get to stay home. We get to travel all the time. We get all these opportunities. We're making a bunch of money. And so it's like, who are we to like complain about this like dynamic? But like, and so, but yet, there's still these like things that we're tough, So, Yes, it is. I feel like I want to be able to say, hey, like, you don't ever have to work again. If I have to like pull the thread all the way to like what I really want from this business, it's that.
Is that what she wants to?
The funny thing is that I'd love to have her sit here as third chair. I'm going to talk to her about this when I get home, actually. She has dialed way back because we've been able to. And that's been really cool. But she still is a hustler at heart. And she still wants to be doing a few things and a few deals here and there and things like that. It's just less.
Yeah.
And so I think there's like a happy medium in there for her.
Yeah. So I think
it's more about the option
of
being able to say, you can disable all your social media accounts if you want to.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah. And it sounds like she may not want to. And again, we can't speak for her, she's not here, but that'd be a great conversation to have with her. So here's where I want to pull the next thread is failure happens. Like life is not a perfect line between A and B, right? That would be ideal if it was, but things like pandemics happen, things like businesses fail, things are hard sometimes. So to me, one of my worldviews that is really important is, I didn't know I need this, as a phrase that I say when things get really hard. It helps me reframe my mindset. Because I don't believe that everything happens for a reason. I think that can be a really sadistic way to look at the world and life, because sometimes bad things just happen. Some things, hard things just happen. But for me, you are now a business owner again. And the failure of that last business is haunting you in ways that are unhelpful, which you are very aware of. So what are the learnings that you're taking away from that? And I think this is a very valuable thing for people who are listening to this to hear too. What will you do differently going forward based on the learnings that you had from last time?
I think I need something tangible when I'm in this mental state of having these fake conversations with people that never existed. I need a way to pull myself out of that, I think. And I don't know.
So here's a mental framework that I often use. It's like, again, there's like a quadrant of things that are happening here, right? So right now, like you are obviously aware that happens now that I brought it to your attention, right? So what's the next time this happens? How can you become aware of it, even if it happens afterwards?
I think it's probably like, I gotta remember that conversation I had with Darrell.
Yeah. Or like, oh, I did it again. So what's gonna happen next is you're going to do it, and then you're gonna notice it after you've done it, right? That is progress. Because before you didn't notice it at all unless somebody else brought it up to you. So the next phase in the quadrant is, I'm now aware of it after it's happened. Then you're going to become aware of it while it's happening, and then you're going to be aware of it as the feelings are coming up around it. And so I think the only goal for you in this is to just be honest as the awareness comes up here. And so this is helpful. I mean, you have a coach, so you and I can talk through this. Something worth bringing up to your wife and having her potentially hold you accountable, or like pointing out in kindness, like, hey, I think you might be doing that thing again. And I just call it the check engine light, right? So for me, my check engine light is when I get angry. I don't know why it is. If you are a personality profile person, I'm an Enneagram 8, and like anger is kind of always under the surface for that kind of personality profile. So as soon as I start getting angry about something, I'm like, oh, my check engine light came on. Well, I used to get really angry and start like blowing up on people around me. Not super helpful, right? And then I get to the point now where I feel the anger start rising up, and I can say, oh, my check engine light's coming on, right? And I think that's just a useful frame for you to hold on to of like, what does it feel like when those things start coming up? Like one thing I know really quickly is like you've slowed down. So when that energy starts speeding up again in your mind, that might be a check engine light to be noticing I might be doing this again. So first of all, it's like the quadrants here. It's like before you were unaware. Next, you'll be aware after the fact. Then you'll be aware in the midst of it. And then you'll be aware as the feeling comes up before the behavior starts manifesting. Make sense?
Very helpful. Going back to the business and how I can remove that obstruction to not...
I think that's even a wrong frame. Not obstruction. It's a lesson. So it's in service of you, not in blocking of you. Right? And I think this is like, we don't need to pretend like that wasn't hard.
Yeah.
So it's not an obstruction. We just need to reframe what it is a little bit, right? So that's why I framed the question in the way. what can you learn from that experience? Or what have you learned from that experience?
Let me share one other thing, which I think is another block for me, which is that because I was thinking about it as a skunkworks and I wasn't putting high stakes on it, I was able to adopt this frame, which I truly fundamentally believe, which is like, I just want to serve the next generation of creators. And I say it a lot, I believe it in my core, and that also has served me really well with the success of the business, because I think people generally appreciate that disposition, where they're like, I'm not trying, I don't care if you join my course or not, like that type of attitude. I've been able to have that because it wasn't the sole source of income. And the fear of making it the sole source of income, somehow now, is there like a conflict between this service thread to the business and now, oh, we actually have to make money in the business now? Like, is that in conflict to like serving my customers, you know?
Is it?
No.
So this is it. We just had a duality. I just want to talk about this. We just had a duality right there. I want to point it out so you can become aware of it, right? So the question that I just asked you, which is that true? Helps you find that duality. I have this fear. Great. Let's make sure that we're not ignoring that. Okay, that's a very important thing, because there's actually lots of value about how you serve your business here. It's mixed up with some other gurgly stuff, but we can take the wisdom out of that.
Yeah.
And then the question is like, is that true? No, of course not. So why is it not true? So let's get into that other duality conversation here. Why is it not true?
It's not true because both can be true,
Yeah.
I guess, right? Like I can serve them, but still make healthy profits that, you know, is a livelihood for my family, and like that, the two things are not opposing forces.
They're not. And again, the amount of energy that you'll get back living in that point of wisdom is amazing. It's energy that you can reinvest in thinking through important decisions that you can make in your business versus holding this kind of wondering fear, right? Make sense?
Well, that was a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And
So I think wrapping, I just want to wrap this in a full circle. So I think the important part, and I love that you just noticed it this quickly, is there's always a duality in these things. If you notice yourself spinning into one kind of negative thought pattern, pausing myself and say, is this true? Is this completely true? That will open up the ability to listen to the quieter voice. Like, it has this ability to like observe that thought and have like a higher version of yourself look down and say like, what's actually true about this? So in the example of your wife is, I'm afraid that I've let her down. Is that true? No, she's actually told me that she wasn't let down. Okay. My fear about my business, is it true? No, I actually can serve and make money at the same time. That allows just like the openness to come up for you to find the wisdom in the moment. And I'm a firm believer that there's like this, and I don't want to get too weird in this, but like my worldview is that there's just so much wisdom inside of us, right? As long as we allow the space to open up to the duality of conversation that's happening in our head. So this is key, because I think right now, if anybody in any position like this, going through hard time, failure, fear, this is actually even true on the opposite side. I tend to be an extreme optimist. So when I'm in extreme optimism mode, great, what's the duality here? Where can this kind of be harder than I think it's going to be, right? Can I have a more full picture of what we're doing? So all we've done today is try to get a more full picture where we're not having singularity of thought that's spiraling us into unhelpful places. That's it. I think just that alone, it's very, very ethereal. It's kind of very, very high level mental and emotional. But like this is the kind of stuff that I think is game changing for people. So.
Well, thank you, man. This has been super useful. If people want to like learn more about you, follow you, what's the best way?
LinkedIn.
All right. Well, make sure to click below, show notes, YouTube description. Thank you, man. This is great.